What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. We are doing a very special mid-afternoon college football live show with my friend Shayhan J. Araja, who is insider at Dave Camel Texas Football. Shayhan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks so much for having me on.
No, man, this is fun. I'm glad that you were able to get on with me because I want to talk about the personnel changes across the Big 12 and really college football because I've thought that the SEC West Division is like the deepest that I've ever seen among college football coaches ever. And it's fascinating. I wish it was its own conference, and it kind of is because it's a division. But then, right at your alma mater over Baylor, you've had tremendous changes. And I know that you got to be excited about Dave Aranda, but right now I was thinking nobody needed spring practice. Like Baylor needed spring practice. So how do you think all of this bodes for Aranda, Larry Fedora? I mean, Joe McGuire is a known commodity over there, but also Jorge Munoz and those guys.
Yeah. You know what's funny? So I was working on some previews in our magazine today, where we obviously preview the entire state of Texas. And I was talking to Blaine Morgan, the new coach over at Lamar, and the funny thing about all this, right, is for any new coaches, and there's a couple of them in Texas, obviously, at the top level, like you mentioned, Dave Aranda and over at UTSA as well. Like, it must be so hard right now just to know that you don't have time to install, like, at all. All of this basically has to be done virtually. All of this has to be done over Zoom. Like, you don't actually get to practice this stuff. And, a lot of these coaching staffs that came in our brand new staffs, they didn't necessarily start spring practices early, because there are some schools that did start spring practice early. I know that there was an article up that a lot of North Carolina schools do that, but man, again, you're talking about Baylor obviously being in a position where they started practice late. UTSA was going to start practice late. It's a tough situation, and I think, especially for a coaching staff that's going to bring a lot of new stuff in. Now you do have the advantage of having a pretty strong team culture. You have a pretty experienced team, especially on offense coming back, but like schematically, they are going in a very different direction than what Matt Rule had there, especially on offense. I mean, offensively, they're going to be more of a spread system than they were. I think that you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be a really tough situation for any new coaches, but especially one who's a first-time head coach like Dave Aranda.
Yeah, I hadn't really given that a whole bunch of thought, him being a first-time head coach as opposed to being, a head coach once again, but he's surrounded himself with what I think are really good coaches. I mean, Larry Fedora has obviously worn that head coaching hat, and Joey McGuire knows how to build something from the ground up in high school, and there were many folks that wanted him to get the head coaching job. It's a really big deal that he was able to, that Aranda was able to hold on to McGuire, because I know even Oklahoma was reaching out to try to put him on staff. I wonder what it must be like for some of these players that are coming back, because the style of offense and defense that they played, I don't know that it's going to change a whole lot defensively, at least from a personnel standpoint, but offensively, it feels like they're going in an entirely different direction. And yeah, you got Charlie Brewer, but is that the guy? I mean, Jacob Zener looked good in the Big 12 championship to me, but you would be, I think, the expert to ask about that.
Yeah, well, actually, I think that Brewer actually fits what Larry Fedora wants to do better than almost anybody. Like, I think that he's going to benefit perhaps more than anybody from this change, because, what he was being asked to do for really the entire Rule era was be a pro-style pocket passer. Now, the first 2 years, the offensive line wasn't good enough for them to even be able to try that. But I actually think that having a coach like Larry Fedora, who's creative, who wants to get his quarterback in motion, who wants to, to spread things out a little bit, quicker passing game, adding some aspects like that, I think that's going to be a really good fit for Charlie Brewer, because, look, this is a guy who has a good arm. He doesn't have that sort of that rocket arm. Like, I think that when you look at what Baylor did the last couple of years, Jacob Zeno is a better fit for that, because he has sort of that field awareness. He sort of has that strong arm. He's got accuracy. But Charlie Brewer is used to playing in a spread offense from his time at Lake Travis High School. And I think that this is actually going to be a really good fit for him to work with a guy like Larry Fedora, who obviously, created great offenses during his time at North Carolina, produced Mitchell Trubisky, made him into a top 5 pick regardless of whether he should have been there or not. Got some great stuff out of Marquise Williams before him. Larry Fedora is a guy who I honestly think was legitimately in the conversation to become the head coach at Baylor back in 2016. Now, Matt Rule is obviously a better choice, but I think that now him coming in as a coordinator and getting to work with Charlie Brewer and getting to work with a really fantastic room, even if a little unproven of skill position talent, I really think that this offense is going to come together if they have the time to start installing. That's really going to be the big question is how are they going to do that, since they won't be able to have most of spring practice most likely. But I think personnel-wise, I think that it fits very well to what Larry Fedora wants to do.
You know, you bring up a good point about Fedora and the quarterbacks that he's had, because he hasn't had a quarterback as talented as Charlie Brewer before. I'm saying that. You're not saying that. But Zach Robinson ain't it. Chris Leak ain't it. Mitchell Trubisky probably benefited the most that anybody's ever benefited from having Larry Fedora calling plays for him. So on the one hand, I'm very excited about this because, again, you mentioned Lake Travis, 52 points a game they scored. He set the national record for completion percentage of 77.4% passing through like 60 touchdowns or whatever it was, and won a 6A state championship. On the other hand, I'm worried about his health because Max Olson wrote about this in The Athletic earlier this morning, saying, hey, look, he wanted everybody to know that, yeah, he got laid out in the Sugar Bowl, and yeah, he laid there motionless for a long time, and yeah, he got carted off the field and did return to the game, but you know what? It was a stinger. And I'm going, I don't believe you, man. Like, sorry. I just don't. And I know what he meant to that team, and I know he's playing hurt for the last quarter of the season, but is he going to be the guy if he's not fully healthy, or if they think that for whatever reason at the worst now we're talking about Charlie Brewer being injury prone. At best, we're talking about injury prone. At worst, we're talking about maybe having to go to another guy.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely going to be a big question, not just over the offseason, but even heading into next season. You know, I mean, he just can't keep taking these hits. And that is, again, an area where I think that playing in a spread offense is going to help him a little bit. You're going to take a few less sort of direct hits, even if you still get hit a decent amount, versus playing sort of in a pocket sort of situation. But yeah, I mean, he can't withstand that. He's not a huge guy. You know, I mean, he's gained a lot of muscle over the past couple of years, but he's still not, Jalen Hurts. You know, he's still not Sam Ellinger. He's not somebody who's built to take a million hits. And yeah, I think that one thing that I think that Larry Fedora and Dave Aranda and Jorge Munoz and everybody there is going to have to really communicate to him is, man, you just got to slide sometimes. You just got to run out of bounds sometimes. You just got to let this play go sometimes. And I think that, again, this system, I think, is conducive to doing that. But look, I mean, if he's going to keep getting hit the way he has the last couple of years, I mean, he's not going to make it through the season.